I was like, bro, what? I made improvements by 1 point. I went from a 492 to a 493, and I felt great on that second try. I was like, you know what? What's up, y'all? Welcome to the channel. My name is Cameron. I am an incoming first-year medical student, and I am approximately 6 days until the first day of class. I am super excited, but I'm also nervous. Today's video is going to be a little personal. I'm basically going to share how I actually got into medical school. Because trust me, that was a journey. If you're thinking about med school, applying soon, or just nosy like me, then this video is for you. So let me take y'all back real quick. So it wasn't one of those I always wanted to be a doctor story. Mine actually started in college. But before I talk about college, I'm going to rewind back even more to high school, because that's kind of where the story truly starts. Probably my sophomore year in high school, I was a part of a club called HOSA, and it was Health Occupation Students of America. And it was basically a club to introduce us in high school to these careers. I joined the club, I think I was in 10th grade. I became an officer. Within that time frame, I was like, I do not want to go into medicine. I didn't think I was smart enough, and I didn't want to dedicate and sacrifice a lot of time. I just wanted to go to college. However, our HOSA teacher at the time, she was very consistent on trying to introduce me to new healthcare related professions. She completed an application on behalf of myself to go out to this medical school for a week during the summer and kind of experience the life of a medical student. And I didn't know anything about medical school. I don't have any family in medicine. I don't even have any family that graduated college. Medical school was definitely an oblivious term for me, and becoming a doctor was nearly impossible in my eyes. Fun fact, the medical school that I went to for that week is the medical school that I will be starting next week. So that's cool how that ties back into play. During that week-long experience, I already knew going in that I didn't want to do anything in medicine. But hey, it was a free trip. I get to do something different. Why not do it? When I was there, I had so much fun. I really enjoyed myself. It was the first time I stepped foot in a cadaver lab. First time I actually talked to a medical student. But they put a fear in my eyes. It wasn't the people necessarily, it was just the entire atmosphere. I was afraid. I was like, oh, absolutely no. So it actually confirmed that I did not want to do medicine. I was like, yeah, I can't do this. I'm not the best student in high school. Even some of the other kids from different schools that knew that they wanted to go into medicine, they were intimidating. Like, they already took AP chemistry, and I don't know, they knew that that's what they wanted to do, so they made the most out of it. I was just happy to be there. I still remember it till this day, but after I left, I knew, okay, at least I do not want to be a doctor. I know I don't want to go to medical school, but I will kind of entertain the idea of healthcare. Fast forward to the next summer, so that was my sophomore year. Fast forward to my junior year in high school, I went on another program for a week called the Virginia Law Cadets. It was through the Legions, and basically what it is, they took junior high school students in the summertime, and for a week or 2 weeks, I don't remember, you kind of act as a Virginia State Trooper cadet in the academy. It was brutal. I mean, first day, as soon as your parents drop your bags off, you give your parents a hug and a kiss. I gave my mom a hug. I was like, all right, I'll see you in a week. This should be fun. As soon as they left, the state troopers just came in, just started screaming, yelling, told us to get an attention. Overall, I really, really enjoyed it. And I was like, I want to be a Virginia State Trooper. That's what I wanted to do. So my senior year, I am applying to college. I applied to Old Dominion University. That was the only school I applied to because they had a pretty good track record with criminal justice. And though you don't need a bachelor's degree or any type of degree to get into law enforcement or into that field of law enforcement, I still want to go to college. That was still the ultimate goal, the ultimate dream, was to just go to college. I was a criminal justice major, and then things just changed completely from there. I still had the healthcare in the back of my head alongside knowing that I wanted to be a trooper. And I don't know, something just switched in college. I don't remember the exact thing, but I started to gravitate more towards science-related classes, and I started to fall in love with the human body. So I was like, okay, I'm going to change my major to exercise science, and I'm going to look at the careers you can do with an exercise science degree. And I didn't really find anything that I wanted, However, I found that a lot of exercise science majors go on to become a physical therapist. And I had physical therapy in the past for my shoulder. I was a swimmer, so I stayed in and out of physical therapy. I love what they did. I was like, okay, it's not as intense as medical school training or physician training, but it's still a very solid career. It implements exercise component to physical recovery. I was like, this is what I'm growing to become. This is what I want. I could see myself doing. I started to rearrange my schedule to where it fits exercise science with the idea of going into physical therapy school. This all happened literally first semester, freshman year. I was battling what I wanted to do with my career alongside actually being a college student and having fun. So the second semester of my freshman year, I was officially on the track to become a physical therapist. My sophomore year, I took anatomy and physiology. That was kind of the prerequisite for physical therapy. First semester, sophomore year, I am sitting in anatomy class, and the professor at the time told us to raise our hands if we were interested in medicine, interested in becoming a physician. And I would say the 70% of the class raised their hand, and he said, at least 50% of y'all will change your major. Everyone's eyes just lit up. It went over my head. I could care less. I was like, I'm not in that 70%. I'm actually in the 30%. Our anatomy professor, he kind of scared all of us at that point. So I was like, all right, if he's saying that to the pre-meds, the kids that know that they want to spend the rest of their life in school, this class is no joke. So let me lock in. Fortunately, that's what I did. I absolutely loved that class. It was my favorite class up until that point. That was when I learned how to study and how to engage myself as a student. And the best part about that anatomy course was he taught it in a sense of medicine. So he added a lot of clinical correlations. He added a lot of medically relevant material and then used anatomy to discuss those aspects. That wasn't until the time I was like, I can do this. I would like to be a physician. My study partner at the time, and he became my roommate, he was pre-med. He was the smartest kid in the class, and he was someone that I actually mimicked and learned how to study from. So we studied every single day. It was so cool how it ended up, because it was the second week of anatomy. The anatomy professor had already told us, in order to do well in this class, you're gonna need to find a study partner or a study group. You guys are gonna have to work together on this. He sat right beside me and he was like, what's up, bro? You wanna study together sometime? And I was like, yeah, man, I'm down for it. So then we exchanged contact information, and he was like, you can come study at my place. I live at this apartment. And I was like, wait, I live at this apartment. And he was like, oh wow, I live on this floor. And I was like, hold on, dude, I live on this floor. And he was like, wait, what room are you in? And come to find out, we were living across the hall from each other. So that was so funny. But he became my study partner for because it was a year-long anatomy course, part 1 and 2, anatomy and physiology. So we basically studied together that entire year with other people in our group. And then the following year, we moved in together and became roommates. Throughout that process, kind of the one who showed me what it takes to get to his point, because I had to play catch up. I never took chemistry, I never took biology, I never took any of the basic science. I actually jumped right into anatomy without taking any of the basic sciences, because that wasn't a prerequisite for exercise science. So I was kind of behind. It was one of my top classes. I became a tutor, and then I kind of just soared on from there. I kind of structured my own way and how I was going to get into medicine. So fast forward, I graduated from Old Dominion December of 2020. So my last year and a half was kind of during the COVID pandemic. So that was interesting. It was definitely a change, but it didn't really affect me in the way that it affected a lot of other people. So I still worked. I finished up school. After I graduated, I moved back home to Martinsville, Virginia. It's a little small town south of Virginia. The ultimate goal at that time was to take the MCAT. I didn't know how hard getting into medical school was until that prep. Until it was time for me to sit down and take the MCAT. I had everything planned out. I was going to study for 3 months, take the MCAT, apply to medical school, get into medical school, and become a doctor by now. It did not go to plan at all. I ended up taking the MCAT 4 times. Each prep was a little different, and I don't even count my 4th score because I didn't really need that to get into medical school, and I'll explain that later. But so I took the MCAT 4 times, and I was going to take it all 7 if I had to. I was already set at that point that I have to be a physician. So the first time I took the MCAT, I went through this emotional roller coaster, and it did not end well. I finished with a 492 MCAT score. It was brutal. At the end of that prep, I was so burnt out and done, and I felt like I wasn't retaining anything. So I was like, okay, I need to lock in. I'm gonna lock in for another 2 months because I had studied for 3 months. Even though it wasn't the best, I still retained some things. So I'm gonna shorten it and study for an additional 2 months and then take the MCAT again that year. And that's what I did. I took the MCAT again in, I believe, August. This was my second attempt. Score came out, 493. I was like, bro, what? I made improvements by 1 point. I went from a 492 to a 493, and I felt great on that second try. I was like, you know what? I got this. I got this in the bag. We're good. We're golden. And at this time, I was actually applying to medical school. I had already had my application verified through the AAMC. I already started on my secondaries. Like, everything was good. I was like, okay, I'm gonna take the rest of this year off. It was already September by the time I got my second score back. I'm gonna start over the next year, and things are gonna be different. But I still finished the application cycle of that year just to see if I got lucky. I didn't. So January of 2022, I was gonna take it in April. I was gonna do much better. I had had months of a break. I was ready, I was motivated, I was going for it. I was just gonna get the score that I wanted. My goal score was a 513, LOL. And I had a really good prep. I took the blueprint course, stuck by it. It was great. Okay, now I need a job because I spent an entire year post-undergrad just studying for the MCAT and I was not working. So then going into my third attempt, I had to start working. So I actually had 2 jobs. I was working as a physical therapy technician. The inpatient and outpatient facility was actually a part of the hospital in Martinsville. My second job was I was a head coach for a YMCA and USA club swim team. So that third attempt, I was gonna take the test in April, and then I was just gonna go from there. I was confident, I was ready, I was prepared. I took the blueprint course. It was excellent. I followed it to the T. I was doing really well on practice exams. Got to the test, felt really good about the exam. Got my score back a month later, 498. I was like, bro, what's going on? Is it me? Is it me? Like, is the MCAT and me just not compatible? Like, me and the MCAT and I were literally in a Love Island relationship. Seriously. I was just like, you know what, you just done me so dirty for so long, and I've just been nothing but good to you. And this is what you do to me? A 498? So I took the rest of the year off. I think I cut the application, like I didn't even do secondaries. What I did was I started studying in early January of 2023, and I studied all the way up until January 12th, day before my birthday, to take this MCAT. And that's what I did. I took the MCAT on January 12th, and I felt great. I felt amazing. Like, it was good. I finished with a 508 MCAT, and I was just like, I was at peace. Like, I was so at peace. I was great. I started emailing the admissions office of different medical schools. I was like locked in, like, okay, this is my year. 2024 is my year. I am emailing, I'm on Zoom meetings with the admissions counselors of many different med schools. One med school in particular, they were like, hey, you can do this program that we have because you've been out of school at this point for 4 years. So we have this linkage program that you do a 9-month master's program. It will be accelerated material as the first block of medical school, and the same professors of your first block will be the professors you have in that master's program. At this point, I was entertaining that idea because I could start that this year. I can start that in 2024, because if I was just applying to medical school, I would still be a year out. So what will I be doing in a year's time? Well, I could be taking classes that can prepare me for medical school because I've already been out of the class scene for so long. So no longer the MCAT was a stress. It was, how can I manage schoolwork in a school load in a stressful environment in an accelerated pace? I was like, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm not even going to apply to medical school this year. I'm going to apply to this program and hopefully I get in. And fortunately, I did. I got into the master's program. It was through Bluefield University, affiliated with VCOM's medical school. It's a DO school in Blacksburg, Virginia. However, they have 3 other campuses. Even though it was through Bluefield University, it was on VCOM's Virginia campus. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. So I applied, I got in. We were going to matriculate in mid-July, so I had to find housing before July. The kicker was I just had to maintain a certain benchmarks. So the benchmarks that I had to maintain was an MCAT of a 496, and luckily my third MCAT was a 498. So I'd already gotten the MCAT benchmark. So that's why I don't even use the 508 as a way I got into medical school, because the 498 was the one that would have gotten me there with that. And then the other benchmark that I had to hold was a 3.5 GPA cumulative. That was actually, it was a tough program. It was really hard. It challenged me in so many different ways, but I'm so fortunate that I was able to, I had the opportunity to do the MABS program. So it was a Master's of Arts in Biomedical Science, but it was definitely stressful. It was overwhelming at times, but it tested me in a way that I am going into medical school a lot more confident than I would have been if I didn't have this background at all. So in December of 2024, after hitting the benchmark for that semester and then having the MCAT benchmark, I was offered an interview, though it wasn't like your traditional interview, medical school interviews where it's like a full day event. Mine was through Zoom and it was 30 minutes. I would say the turnover was like 1 week after that interview. And then I got an email saying that I got in. The second semester, I locked in again, did really well. I did even better the second semester than I did the first semester. After graduation, I was like, okay, it is getting real. And I'm going to a medical school that I actually want to go to. It's a really good DO school. The staff and faculty here is just absolutely amazing. Even the students, you can tell by the students. When you're stepping foot on that campus, you can see that they're stressed, but you can also see that medical school is not consuming their lives and they have so many other things that they're doing, and that's so refreshing to see. So that is pretty much the end of the story of how I got into medical school and how my career ideas changed throughout that journey. So if you're watching this and you're thinking about medical school, I just want you to know you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be persistent. You will 100% not get into medicine if you quit. It is very hard and it will test a lot of your boundaries, but you will not get in if you give up. You just have to find your passion of why you want to do it, and it has to be stronger than any other distractor. There's so many pathways to get into medicine. It's not a linear progress. Do not just think that, oh, I have to follow the kid who got a 522 on the MCAT to get into medicine. No. If you're ever in a predicament where you just want to give up, I just want you to ask yourself why you want this. And if your answer makes you feel something, if it grasps that passion that you had of medicine, even if it's just a little touch, a poke, you take that and you go with it and you trust your process. I think trusting your process is just as much important as asking yourself why you want to do it. Because you can ask yourself why, but then when things get hard, it may not be enough to satisfy that current feeling that you have. So trust yourself, please. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure you leave a like, comment, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I've got some more good videos coming soon, so please stay tuned. I appreciate you for watching, and until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.